All right, the Andrew Klavan Show is on the air. I'm not going to do an open today. I'm not feeling all that funny after the events in Las Vegas, and we'll skip the song because the Klavanless weekend sort of got a little bit more serious than we'd like it to, and I'm not feeling actually all that hunky-dunky. As I'm speaking, I'm not going to be talking about this all day, and I'll explain why in a couple minutes. But, you know, as I'm speaking, the death count in this Las Vegas shooting is up to 58 was the last I heard. The injuries are over 500. Worst mass shooting in American history, worse than the Orlando shooting a while back. Here's the president addressing the nation.
Hundreds of our fellow citizens are now mourning the sudden loss of a loved one, a parent, a child, a brother or sister. We cannot fathom their pain. We cannot imagine their loss. To the families of the victims, we are praying for you, and we are here for you. And we ask God to help see you through this very dark period. Scripture teaches us the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. We seek comfort in those words, for we know that God lives in the hearts of those who grieve. To the wounded who are now recovering in hospitals, we are praying for your full and speedy recovery and pledge to you our support from this day forward.
You know, when I first saw this, I woke up. I didn't know about this until I woke up this morning, and the first words that went through my mind were, oh, some evil clown has opened fire on people. And I immediately was struck by the irony of that, because obviously there's this hit movie, It, now, that actually features an evil clown based on the Stephen King book. And I was suddenly thinking, oh, but that evil clown is not actually an evil clown. That evil clown is a creation of an artist who is trying to entertain you, bunch of movie makers trying to amuse you, entertain you, scare you in the good way. That evil clown was actually a work of art, which is always a good thing. This evil clown is actually an evil clown, and that's one of the things that is very tough when we are in this divided state, in this partisan position that we're in now, where everybody's so angry all the time. We're constantly using that word evil. And, you know, behind the scenes, the people here at the Daily Wire, most of us have become very close friends. And we have these political arguments all the time because we have all these differences and we want to iron them out. And obviously we all want to hear what the other person has to say and try and convince one another. And one of the things that people are always hammering me about is that I won't let them use the word evil unless it describes evil. You know, when they talk about Barack Obama, I always say Barack Obama is not evil. That's not what evil looks like. And, you know, Donald Trump is not evil. Whether you agree with him or not on any given day, whether you like his behavior on any given day, that's not evil. And the reason I feel that that's important, even though it annoys people because they want to use that word, they want to go to that word, is when you get to the level of evil, you're now talking about extreme action. A guy like the guy who opened fire in Las Vegas, you want to kill him. That's really the only thing there is to do. But with the rest of us, you want to talk, you want to argue. I don't want to use words like, oh, this is a war. I don't want to say, oh, this guy is evil, because even if the consequences of something a politician is doing are bad, that doesn't necessarily mean he intends evil to anybody. And I don't think Barack Obama, who I obviously didn't like very much and thought he was an incompetent, I don't think he intended evil to people. I don't think Donald Trump intends evil to people. And that's one of the reasons I get so annoyed with the way the press covers this and the way people talk about it. I'll explain in a moment why we're not going to talk about this all day long, but we're not going to talk about it all day long. I have a lot I want to say about Puerto Rico and the way the coverage is coming. And Michael Knowles, host of the Michael Knowles Show, will be with us to discuss the developments about the NFL and other things. And a lot of people say to me, you know, why Michael Knowles? And the reason is we didn't use ZipRecruiter.com. You know, I was just sitting in a bar. I'd had a few, and I said, does anybody want a podcast at the Daily Wire? And Knowles was, you know, there was this kind of cloud of smoke, and I saw a figure moving through the cloud of smoke, and Knowles came out of it. And I thought, oh, all right, you know, you do a podcast because you look nice. But if you're smart, see, if you want great talent for your business and you're short on time, the better thing to do is to go to ZipRecruiter.com. With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click, so you can rest easy knowing your job is being seen by the right candidates. And then what ZipRecruiter does is it puts its smart matching technology to work. It actively notifies qualified candidates about your job within minutes of the posting, so you receive the best possible matches. And that's why ZipRecruiter is different. It's 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. That really is different. And unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you, it finds them. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire, and you can find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by growing businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. So that's an easy choice to make, right? It's free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire, ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. And one more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Don't let Michael Knowles happen to you. All right. Now the reason I'm not going to talk about this all day is that there's not that much to say. The commentating is something that you do when things need comment. But when somebody opens fire on people, this was a 3-day country music festival. They were in an open area in Las Vegas. This madman went to the high room in a nearby hotel, hammered out the windows, and then opened fire with what sounded to me like automatic weapons. I mean, I fired semi-automatic weapons, and this didn't sound like that. It sounded like fully automatic weapons. And he then killed himself as the police were going in. Here's his brother. The guy's name is Stephen Paddock, and his brother Eric Paddock has no idea why he did this. ISIS is claiming credit for this. I'm not. I'll wait and see. I'm not buying that. That's like me claiming credit for like writing Shakespeare's plays. I think ISIS at this point, ISIS is about the Islamic State is about to be like an outhouse in a desert. After our military gets through with them, so they're going to claim as much damage as they possibly can. Here's the shooter's brother just saying he doesn't know what happened. He looks as baffled as anybody.
He's never even drawn his gun. It makes no sense. He's never hit anybody. He's never...
Gun enthusiast or just a few...
Well, he had a couple of handguns, I think. He had a safe with a couple of handguns. He might have had one long rifle, but he didn't have any... I mean, he had no automatic weapons that I knew of at any time. There's no... it just makes no sense.
That's now being reported that the guy's father was a bank robber who was on the FBI's most wanted list, so there's some kind of history there. But again, it's just too early to know, so I don't want to go off speculating. Here's the reason I don't want to talk about this all day. At this point, like I said, this is a job for the police, not for a commentator. This is a job where the police go and gather information and do the actual job of gathering information. This is a job for the terrific people who work in the hospitals, who take care of people who are injured, people who are in shock. So many, I mean, over 500. Obviously these are people who went out to party that, some of them probably didn't even know they were hurt until much later. And some of them may not even know whether they're hurt. They're in such shock. When I see people trying to politicize these things, and because the left owns the media, it starts with the left, right? We know how it works. If a Muslim does it, well, it's not all Muslims, but if a white supremacist does it, then everybody in the GOP is somehow guilty of being a white supremacist. If it's a Bernie bro, like it was at the softball game in Washington, well, we can't blame Bernie bros, but, obviously, if it has anything to do with the right wing, then suddenly all right wingers are to blame. And if they can do nothing else, it's the anti-Second Amendment agenda. Hillary Clinton tweeted this morning, the people were running because they heard the gunfire. Imagine how bad it would be if the NRA had its way and you could buy silencers, as if this guy was limited in his actions by the law. I feel that, I would like to put a silencer on Hillary Clinton so that, like, when she opened her mouth, nothing came out. But, like, that's neither here nor there. So what happens? We fight back. We fight back, and we say, no, this is it's not about guns. It is about Bernie. It's not about it is about Muslims, whatever. And then we become part of it, and we become part of it. All the while, all I can think is that some mom and dad sent their kid off to a concert yesterday, and the kid's not coming home, and like that's all I can think about is like you're standing next to your wife having a good time, and suddenly your wife is gone, suddenly your husband's gone. That's all I can think about, and I can't bring myself to get into that conversation. I cannot bring myself. I don't want to allow myself to be dragged down into that conversation. The fact is, whether Islam is a problem or white supremacism is a problem or not a problem, is something that you look at over time. That's something you see over time. If there's one incident that illustrates that, using that as the building block of a larger narrative is kind of despicable. The narrative is going to be there after the incident is gone, after these people are healed, the wounded are healed, after the dead are mourned. Believe me, the landscape is going to be there. The political landscape is going to be what it is, and I don't want to be dragged down in it. This is something that's happening all over, that in our entire society, is that you feel like you have to fight back. The voices of the left especially have so much power. They have so much of the media. They have so much of the entertainment media. They have so much of the education classes, the academies and all that stuff, that you always feel like you have to fight back. And that is a lot of what's going on. So let's turn from this now, because there's not that much more to say about it. But let's turn from this now to take a look at what I mean when we're talking about this hurricane that's hit Puerto Rico, right? First, we had the Russians, Donald Trump is a Russian spy baloney. Then we had the Charlottesville, Donald Trump is a racist baloney, where it was that Donald Trump said that there were good people among the neo-Nazis, which I will get back to that, and I will show you that that is not what he said, and they are intentionally twisting that. Now we have Puerto Rico is Katrina. It's like CNN is basically reporting its daydreams at this point, right? They're having trouble getting supplies and relief to Puerto Rico in ways they didn't have trouble getting supplies and relief to Texas when the hurricanes hit there. And most of this is because FEMA. It's not that the federal government didn't get the supplies and the people there on time. It did, okay? But FEMA was not prepared for the level of corruption, the union corruption that is in Puerto Rico, and it was not prepared for the level of just absolute destruction. The infrastructure there is not any good, and now the entire place is shut down without electricity. So FEMA is kind of bungling some of this. It's not that, Trump didn't make sure that all the people got there. It's that the logistics on the ground are really difficult. Trump did make, I think, one mistake. There's an act, what's it called? The Jones Act, I think, that it requires that you use American shipping to send stuff to Puerto Rico. And at first he didn't suspend it, and then he suspended it for 10 days, which is not going to be enough. He should just suspend it. I mean, I know that the shippers don't want this to happen. They like their little monopoly. Tough, get the stuff to the people. So now the mayor of San Juan, which is the only city in Puerto Rico anybody knows about. The mayor of San Juan, far leftist, Carmen Cruz, her name is, she starts criticizing Trump and obviously trying to build up this Katrina narrative. She shows up on TV with a hat that says, help us, or a t-shirt, I'm sorry, that says, help us, we are dying. And she starts saying that Trump doesn't do a good job. And Donald Trump responds with his usual grace by just opening up on her. He says, the problem is that he says such poor leadership, this is a tweet, such poor leadership ability by the mayor of San Juan and others in Puerto Rico who are not able to get their workers to help. They want everything to be done for them when it should be a community effort. Obviously a graceless thing to say when people are in trouble, but we're so tired of the politicization of everything, and it seemed clear that this very, very left-wing mayor of San Juan had been position told to go out, because before this happened, the people in Puerto Rico were saying, no, Donald Trump is helping us out. He's sending us the stuff we need. And suddenly, suddenly they're criticizing him. It did seem a political thing. So now Trump, as he always does, he overreacts, especially when he's personally attacked, and the media goes nuts. And what's their narrative? Guess. Guess what the narrative is. The problem is that the people in Puerto Rico are brown, right? That is the problem. As if there were no black people in trouble in Texas. That wasn't a thing. Nothing like that. Nothing like that in Louisiana. But here's just Brian Stelter, just as a sample of what CNN is selling this week in their garbage sale.
At best, the president's tweets are insensitive today. I think at worst, Fred, they are a racist dog whistle, a disgraceful reaction to what he's seeing on television. He's clearly watching the mayor of San Juan on CNN and other channels, calling for more help, begging for more help, and reacting this way. I think it's personally beyond the pale and unpresidential. And I think it's a tough situation for journalists because we've got to call it that. We've got to identify what we're seeing. I'm so glad that all of our reporters there in Puerto Rico are describing what's actually happening on the ground. And I hope the president, in between his golf game today, watches more of those reports from the ground rather than just impulsively reacting to what he's seeing from the mayor of San Juan.
Thanks, Brian, for pouring oil on the troubled waters of the country. What a jerk, I mean, come on. So, of course, this is the two-step, right? It's not just the it's not just the media, the left-wing media, which it all is. It's also the politicians then know that they can show up and say these outrageous things. I mean, come on. Does anybody truly think that Donald Trump woke up and said, we're not going to send anything to Puerto Rico. Those people are brown. I mean, come on. Come on. So Bernie Sanders, right, who should be hiding away on any day when a mad shooter goes nuts, he comes out and he hammers the narrative home.
The White House denies it, but there are a lot of critics who say that race or ethnicity might be playing a factor here. What do you think?
Well, look, given the president's history on race, given the fact that he a few months ago told us that there were good people on both sides when neo-Nazis were marching in Charlottesville, yeah, I think we have a right to be suspect that he is treating the people of Puerto Rico in a different way than he has treated the people of Texas or Florida.
Okay, now let's just stop here for a minute, because this is part of what happens in the media, and this is part of the way it works. They start with a lie. We on the right debunk the lie. They kind of back off it, but then they circle back around, and then the lie becomes enshrined in the narrative. So now Bernie Sanders can go and speak the lie about Charlottesville as if it were just part of what we all accept to be history, all right? Let's go back for a minute, because this has really bothered me for a while. Let's go back and look at what Trump said that day, all right? He was speaking as the reporters, as they constantly do, are interrupting him, not letting him get a word in, because it is so important for us to hear the reporters' voices and opinions that we don't want to listen to the president of the United States. We just want to hear them. And he's saying, I want to read this. I don't want him to say it because I want to be able to analyze it as I go. Trump is talking over them. He says, excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo-Nazis. And you had some very bad people in that group. In other words, the people who came to protest the tearing down of statues were not all neo-Nazis, but yes, there were some of them who were neo-Nazis. There were bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, and then he says, excuse me, because he's being shouted down. He says, excuse me, I saw the same pictures you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. So when he said there were fine people in that group, he was not speaking about neo-Nazis. And if the press didn't wanted to clear that up, they would ask him. Do they ever ask him? No. Why? Because they want it like this. They want us to be divided. They want us to hate one another. The right and the left, not the far, look, the far right and the far left are always going to be at daggers drawn, but I am talking about conservatives and liberals. They want us to hate one another so that we don't communicate, because they are Democrats, and they can sell, as long as they can sell the narrative that the right is evil, they can sell you the crappy policies of the Democrats, the non-working, failed policies of the Democrats. If they ever had to assume, if I say, if I say, gee, I disagree with tearing down the statue of Robert E. Lee, if they ever have to assume, well, maybe he has some good reason for saying that, maybe he has some positive reason, maybe as he likes his fellow Americans and he says that, why would he say that when it seems so strange to me? If they ever would say that, they would destroy their own narrative. Just to add to this, just to say, I've told you what I think about what's going wrong in Puerto Rico, but here is a colonel in the United States Army, Michael A. Valle, I think his name is Valle. He's a commander of the 101st Air and Space Operations Group and director of the Joint Air Component Coordination Element, 1st Air Force, responsible for Hurricane Maria relief. That's the hurricane in Puerto Rico, and the efforts to bring the relief there. He is a first-hand witness of the U.S. Department of Defense response supporting FEMA in Puerto Rico, and he is a Puerto Rican himself with family members living in the devastation. He says his passion for the people is second for none, and of the criticism, he says it's just not true. I have family here, my parents' home is here, my uncles, aunts, cousins are all here. As a Puerto Rican, I can tell you that the problem has nothing to do with the U.S. military, FEMA, or the DOD. The aid is getting to Puerto Rico. The problem is distribution. The federal government has sent us a lot of help. Moving those supplies, in particular fuel, is the issue right now, and they just can't get the generators and all this stuff. So this is part of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the shooting in Vegas, when I'm talking about this. We feel like we have to strike back. They lie. They pour lie on lie on lie. They even offhanded things where they just say, oh, in Charlottesville, he said this, a lie. And making a lie part of the narrative. He didn't say it. He didn't say it. And so we feel we have to strike back. And then we're brought down to that level. And not only do we feel we have to strike back, in many ways I feel that we have elected a president who will strike back. I've been saying this again and again, and we're going to take a break in a minute, but I've been saying this again and again, that Trump was elected. He was elected to fight back against these people, and his rudeness and his sometimes bullying and sometimes his saying things that are untoward are part of the fact, part of the reason the people who love him is because they've been hammered by these people. They get hammered on the late night comedy shows. They get hammered at the movie award ceremonies. They get hammered in their rock songs. They get hammered in the news shows. They get hammered every day, and this is the only way they could get anyone powerful enough with a big enough voice to strike back. But what does it do to us? And that's what I'm going to deal with at the end of today's show when we get to our crappy culture. But first, we're going to go to Michael Knowles. But first, before we go to Michael Knowles, we are going to talk about how beautiful my head looks. You know, I was watching Knowles. I could see him on the camera. Knowles is in the studio next door. He's in his studio, right? Yeah. Yeah. So he's in his studio, and our wonderful makeup lady, Jess, who I just, obviously Jess is the reason I'm sitting here today. If it weren't for Jess, this face, it would look like the last reel in a vampire movie after the sun comes up. It's like, but I was watching Jess spray stuff on Knowles' hair because Knowles actually has hair. Now, not many people know it's a toupee, but no, it's not. And I said to Jess, I'm jealous, you spray stuff on Knowles' head. But she doesn't have to spray stuff on because I am a member of DollarShaveClub.com. And I have been a member for long before they became a sponsor, but I'm thrilled that they're a sponsor because they are the smarter choice for getting razors. When you belong to DollarShaveClub.com, you do not have to go to the drugstore and you open up the razor cabinet and an alarm goes off and two cops send you outside and they throw you out into the street and all that stuff. You don't have to do that. They send you the razor. It's cheaper. It's better. The quality of the blades, to me, feels good and it feels much better. And I have to say, I should know because I'm shaving like a lot of real estate every morning. And I started out with they call it the Humble Twin. It's got two blades, and it was great. It was absolutely great. But just to let me test it out for the ads, they sent me their executive one, and this thing is amazing. I mean, you just look at it across a crowded room, and suddenly your head is shaven. It's just an amazing thing. And they've got this Dr. Carver shave butter, which I love. It's transparent, so you can actually see what you're doing, and it's just really smoother and everything. So for a limited time, new members, try this thing out because really, or get it for your boyfriend if you don't want to get it. It is really amazing. For a limited time, new members get their first month of the Executive Razor with a tube of Dr. Carver's shave butter for only $5 with free shipping. After that, razors are just a few bucks a month. That's a $15 value for only $5. In your first month box, you get an awesome weighty handle, a full cassette of 4 cartridges, and a tube of their shave butter. After your first month, replacement cartridges ship automatically at their regular price. And if you don't need them that month, sometimes they kind of get ahead of me. You just press a little button that says skip this month, and they'll just send them to you next month. There are no hidden fees, no commitments. You can cancel anytime you want, and you can only get this offer exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/Klavan. That is dollarshaveclub.com/KLAVAN, as in Nancy, dollarshaveclub.com/Klavan. Really try it out. They really are excellent. All right, we got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to hear the wonderful and talented, the lovely and talented Michael Knowles and his hair, you have to come over to thedailywire.com and you can listen. But if you would only subscribe, you could watch the whole thing right there, and you wouldn't have this problem where you're cast out into the exterior darkness, where there's great wailing and gnashing of teeth, which you deserve because you didn't spend the 10 lousy bucks a month it cost to subscribe to the Daily Wire. And if you subscribe for 100 lousy bucks, you get an entire year's subscription. That means you can be in the mailbag if you just subscribe for the month, right? Yeah, but you can have all your problem solvers just for a lousy 10 bucks, but for a lousy 100 bucks, you get the whole year subscription. Plus, you get the Leftist Tears tumbler, which fills up every time Michael Knowles even just sits up in bed. The Leftist Tears tumbler fills up again. So come on over to thedailywire.com and hear the rest of the show.